This conference will now be recorded.
So good day, folks, and welcome. Rick here. I'm delighted to welcome you to the third session in the series on clergy, and I guess we could say pastoral worker wellness and well-being, being presented by Dr. Khalili, who's generously given his time and effort to preparing these sessions and always supportive to people in ministry who call upon him or refer to him or what have you, and he understands well some of the issues and challenges to those in ministry, whether they're ordained or lay people. So thank you for all you do for so many of us, Dr. Khalili. Here it is. Take it away.
So we start someplace. You're going to sit or you're going to?
I'm going to sit.
Okay. Can I be heard well?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have two parts to this. One is that what I have learned from your colleagues, okay? And I'm going to put up whatever I learned from your colleagues through the working with the ministers and peace and all of that. But the second part is the what I see that need to be done. So I would want to go, and at one point I would ask the 3-4 subject that I want to talk, somebody read for me. So let's have a little review of what we have done last two times. And my idea was to, what I said before, to understand wellness and well-being, understand the stress and burnout, and what to do, what not to do, basically. Then we reviewed the stressful activities that clergy does. I'm not going to go through all the list again, you're familiar with it. Some of them political, some of them personal, some of them actual. And as I mentioned before, for example, in this case, sometimes our own personality, the OCD type personality, that's called a problem. The culture of church called a problem. And then what I have seen sometimes, the doubt, the call to ministry, that's called because I'm good for the job. But anyway, I'm not going to go to those. The impact of the stress, we reviewed already. And as I said before, that it cause even physical problems, asthma, eczema, heart disease, and all of that. What I want to talk to you again, go back to the grid that I mentioned to you before, and I'm going to go to other three this time. But before we and also I'll go back to emphasis on work and hobbies. I'll go back to health again, okay? Because these I believe that the four of them are well balanced. Everybody will be fine. Last week I was in Florida. When I was reviewing our journal, psychology journal, I came across a small article. It's irrelevant to this, but it's relevant. Okay. I came to this condition called mild cognitive impairment, which is, we call them MCI. And this is where it's not dementia, doesn't necessarily turn to dementia, but it's something mild, okay? And relevant to what we're talking about, because a lot of us, we are and then what hit me was the numbers. The 66, almost 7% of 60 to 64 years old, they experience. But what's more interesting about 20% over 65. But the woman with 80% doesn't. So it's the other way of looking at it. And 25%, 84. Not everybody is with the MCI develop dementia, and then we can identify it by neurological testing. This is the best one to do that. Then there are two types. The one that memory stuff, and the one actual language and executive stuff. If there's something we want to do, we can't do it. We're driving, we get confused, And why I was interested? Because I'm 72, and I said, why? Because sometimes, especially when I was in Florida, I'm missing highways. I normally don't. Okay, and I said, maybe. So I said, maybe it's good to talk. And then what was all interested? How we can prevent it? Well, maybe not. Then this is the one I related to what we're talking about. Again, the three things that they come, the medication doesn't do any good. But the three things that it does, they say over and over, all the survey they have done, is that, and the number one was exercise, active physical activity. Number two, controlling high blood pressure. And number three, cognitive training. You guys doing it. You're doing it all the time, okay? But do you? This is what I'm saying, because, and this made me to think about, because sometimes I forget sometimes words. Mushroom, for example. I stuck the mushroom. I cannot remember the mushroom. Then I have to go to my first Persian word. I remember that what in the 50 years ago, but it's still, and then I cannot remember and then mushroom come back. So what I was saying is go back to exercise and cognitive training, okay? Now, this is sort of irrelevant what I'm talking about, but something was interesting that hit me. And I said, well, let's share with you guys.
We've said 2 or 3 times, those of us that are on the other side of 60, and we're studying, saying that when we were students in our 20s, and even we'd read something once and we'd sort of gain something from it, but now you got to read it 2 or 3 times in order to really get into something. So the language aspect.
I believe that's the information overload.
That's what I call it.
Yes.
I believe that's information overload, so, and that's what the first station I'm talking about, how we can get rid of emotional fat. Because some of those emotional fat still in the gigabox, whatever it is, it became relevant.
Grandfather was right, you're full of it.
So when we go back to what originally we talked about, remember we talked about these. Now we're talking about home life. Okay. If you look at it, the home part of it, there are so many of them, and I didn't write all of it. But what I found in depending on the age we are in, the family side, whether the sick family member, whether it's a communication issue, whether it's a family member, we try to do whatever we can. And some of us, we are a sandwich generation, right? Sometimes our own parents, I mean, not me, but our own parents would say. So I have dealt with all of these issues, but one of the most important one I came up with, and I know is this one, communication. Now, and the reason I put this one is, and ask yourself that question, because we say we can verbally communicate, we can physically communicate, but by gosh, most of us, we don't emotionally communicate. Okay? So what is active listening? In terms of this is something that if you learn active listening is, I know you're doing it. But I know I do it because of my profession, I would do it. Active listening means when I'm listening, I don't look for answer. I don't, it's not about me. It's 100% about the person I'm hearing from, okay? Do we do that with active listening? Because most of the time, if it touches something that is important to us, forget listening, we're preparing our answers. And a lot of time when I have couples in my office, when I see the shift, the the physical shape of the female or male changes, I put my hands up, not to go there. Listen but carefully what the other person is saying. So when we talk about emotional reasoning, emotional communication is mean I say words and I'm trying to, because there are two communication. One is wording, one emotion that's going. And the same thing that I'm hearing it, the word. And a lot of people hear the word, but they don't hear the emotion. And the other side of the story, do I emotionally communicate with myself? Do I know what I am feeling? Do I put a name on it? As a matter of fact, some research was done with the teenager and children who are aggressive. And they put them in group therapy, group situation. Right? And when they taught them to name their feeling, so put a name to that feeling. Not just say, I'm angry. That's not enough. It has to be exact to the thing. They found 2/3 of aggression stop because the moment they name it, it's similar, separate from me. Jokingly, I call him Jack. The Jack side of me, right? You know what I'm saying? So we be able to communicate with ourselves that what I'm feeling. Okay? Now, the other side is the value clarification. What is emotionally important to me, not intellectually? What should we know? What is really actually is important to me emotionally? If we know that, or we know from our spouse, or we know from people who, if I'm doing cross-cultural counseling, I'm sure you have done it. Okay, we are trained in North America, but we really, what we mean the clientele is saying to us emotionally, by the way they look at you, by the way they look. But I'm not going to go too far, but the point is that we know what's important to us emotionally. And they say what should be, and it is the different thing. Okay, you follow me?
Okay. So if I'm having a thing that gives me stress all the time, if I named it Jack, right, and then it's once it's named scripturally, it says you know what you're dealing with anyway.
Yeah.
So that's fine. And so I've named it Jack, and Jack is a bitch today. Okay. So but is there something? What about the positive side? Because that's the negative. Can you name your positives?
Yourself. It's positive side. Yourself. That's you need to have it yourself.
Yeah.
If because it normally depends on the person how much personality order or disorder is. That Jack would be bigger. But this Jack would hang on to those values that but you don't realize that this he make me upset, or whether Newfoundland make me upset. No. You do, but in the case of, we need to understand our Jack.
Okay.
And then how a Jack operate, because we are not going to be without Jack. We always will be Jack. It will always be shoulders to do that. We want extra drinks. We're not gonna, but being able to catch it. And what I said, there are 3 C's that you do. You catch, you confront, and you change. But catching it is the most important part. Where, when, how, is always 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Because my Jack comes here at 8 o'clock at night because I'm tired, I'm tucked out. So it's not my children or my grandchildren or my wife's problem, it's me. I'm in low period of time. And so emotional communication is the key to one of the well-being of us, but not only with others, with ourselves. I remember from the first one, so I'll talk about emotional fat. How many of these things happen to us? Now, I'm going to stop for a second and ask if maybe you read one of the chapters what I have. I'll call the chapters Inburst. Okay? Very sensitive scenery. If nobody have a problem with reading it, you're well read last time. Go ahead.
Inbursts. Have you ever watched a baseball game where an angry pitcher gets right into the face of the umpire, yelling fit to be tied and looking like the worst thing in the world has just come to pass, and that ump is personally responsible? Or seen a hockey player drop his gloves and go after a member of the other team, as if ready to pound them to such a pulp that there's hardly be enough of them left for the Zamboni to clean off the ice. In a way, these outbursts are part of the show. They know the camera and the fans are watching them, but we've probably all experienced the same kind of thing, albeit to a much less dramatic degree. Our tempers have flared up and we've burst out with something we probably shouldn't have. When that happens, it's a clear indication that something is wrong. After all, people don't just start yelling for no reason, even if the reason isn't a good one or a valid one. It's a cue about that person's state for the people around them. In that sense, an outburst is easy. We can see it, we can deal with it. But what about the opposite? What about when someone represses their anger instead of letting it out? I call these outbursts, and I call these outbursts inbursts, and I think they may be more common than we might suppose. In fact, I think they might be more common than outbursts. People with inbursts keep everything bottled up inside. Their emotions can run the gamut of annoyance, frustration, indignation, infuriation, hostility, and rage, but they often start with hurt, which leads to anger. Hurt comes from missed expectations. I expect you to do something and you don't do it. Then of a stereotypical scene where the husband hurts his wife's feelings by forgetting their anniversary, for example. She starts off hurt and quickly becomes angry. On the other side of the coin, hurt can come from someone doing something you don't expect them to do. Imagine being called into the boss's office expecting to be told what a good job you're doing and getting fired instead. Again, you begin with hurt and quickly become angry. Guilt is a similar emotion. It stems from doing or not doing something we think we should do or should not have done. The husband of the poor lady in the paragraph above might realize he screwed up and feeling guilty about forgetting the anniversary. The boss might feel guilty about letting the employee go when he knows how much that person needed the job. One feels guilty for something he didn't do, and the other feels guilty for something he did do. In both these cases, that feeling can once again turn to anger. And that anger may easily turn inwards, masking the pain the person experiencing it feels. But of course, such a buildup of inbursts will inevitably give off signals. People who experience inbursts may not start yelling at people, throwing down their hockey sticks, and raising their fists, but they might get quite testy and touchy, act out in a grumpy manner, and become moody. As well, their sense of mental balance can become skewed. They over or underestimate a situation, making mountains out of molehills or missing problems they should have been paying attention to. They start to see everything in black and white and overgeneralize. Everything can seem to start like a catastrophe waiting to happen, and they can become demanding and controlling. It's very common for depression to set in as a result, because people with inbursts become angry at the world. Sometimes I have to teach people how to let their emotions out, to replace inbursts with outbursts. I once treated a 45-year-old woman with terminal cancer. People were always trying to calm her down, but that was not what she needed. She needed the opposite. So I would take her out into the woods every couple of days where she would be all alone, and then I encouraged her to vent and to scream and to hit things with sticks. Just let it all out. She would pound on trees as hard as she could. It was exactly what she needed to deal with her anger and would keep her relatively calm until the next session. Other times I have to help people recognize the emotions they have inside them. I once treated a man who ran a very successful business with his wife. Outwardly, he was very proud of them both, the business and the wife. At least that's what he'd say. But it turned out that underneath that smiling and polite persona, he hated everything about his life. He had a mountain of anger built up inside of him. I provided him with tools, but it took a long time for him to realize that he just wanted out. That inside that businessman was a nomadic backpacker. When he finally walked away from the situation, it made both him and his wife very much happier. The problem is, at least from my perspective, people with inbursts are much less likely to seek the help of a professional like me, and that means I can't help them. So how can people deal with their inbursts? I think of it rather like a tap. We need to keep our emotions warm. If they get too hot, we add a little cold water. If they get too cold, we add a little hot water. My 45-year-old cancer patient was quite young and not very bright. She needed to get her emotions sorted out aggressively, but most of us can gain balance intellectually. It sounds kind of simple, but talkers should talk, writers should write, and doers should do. Some people need someone to listen to them, someone who they can pour out all their woes to. Others can pour it into the page, journaling about their journey. Still others need to work hard at something, take up sports, or punch a pillow. Interestingly, I have spoken to several soldiers who seem to be drawn to that career because of some sort of childhood trauma. Soldiering gives them an outlet they need. As one said to me, when I hit a target and hear the blast, I feel good. They found an outlet for their inbursts. The important part is recognizing what is going on, and then we can deal with it or find someone to help us deal with it. I have noticed that I have started becoming a little more irritable in the past couple of years. I searched within myself and discovered that my tolerance for bullshit is diminishing. Well, I can't stop the bullshit, so I started looking for ways to help myself stay calm. I researched holistic medicines and techniques, learning about everything from kava root to lemon balm. Now I drink chamomile tea to help me relax. Of course, even chamomile tea can't cure everything. One very, very bad afternoon at work, I had 3 couples in a row come in seeking help to deal with the loss of a teenage child. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. 2 of the kids had died in accidents and 1 from cancer. The hurt I felt for these parents built up in me until it began to rage inside. I couldn't see another patient right away, and I told my secretary to postpone my remaining appointments for half an hour. I went into my office crying and angry, closed the door behind me. Then I raised my fist into the air and started yelling at God for being so cruel as to allow these kinds of things to happen to people. I cursed, I swore, I questioned everything about life. I didn't expect an answer, but I got one anyway. Get back to work. What could I do? I went back to work. Anger does not visit us for free. Even without counting its effect on our relationship with others, we pay for it physically. It promotes hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and eventually death. That's a high price to pay for something we can learn how to deal with. A price that no one should be asked to pay.
I hope my message is true, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay? We need to go back to Jack again. If you're inversing, not to say have to be angry always, has to be other, you have shaming, you hurts and all of that. We need to identify, put a name to it, and do something with it. Otherwise, it accumulate, it become emotional fat. Become more, and then when you learn to behave it, and we think that's who I am, and that's not true. The sooner we learn it, the sooner we can get it out of our system. And I said it many times. I said, if there's a dirt in my hand, and I said it many times, it's my hand. I go and get a soap and wash it. But the dirt in my head, I don't. I keep playing with it. And it seems like It's okay, 20 years ago this happened, or this happened to me, no. And that's very, after 40, 50 years of listening to people, this is one of the most important lesson I learned. I mean, I don't know 100% the cure of it, but most of it we can learn to wash it off. Meditation is a good thing, but is it really avoidance or solution? Meditation, nothing wrong with it, okay? So to me, is we need to permit ourselves to let go, okay? And again, the profession you are in, you come across and because they will demand from you that you be present emotionally all the time. And I didn't know that till I started learning about clergy. I thought we are the psychologists, blah, 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 blah. But that's not true. There are certain professions, including clergy. We have Messiah syndrome. We have to help everybody, but sometimes we have too much inverse that we cannot do it. I'm going to come back to this again, but I want to talk about the other part of the life of hobbies, okay? Because that's where we can use it to create positive energy. So there are hobbies. Hobbies we have in general hobby. We have collecting hobbies, we have observation hobbies, or we have competitive hobbies. Again, there is pages of information on different hobbies, but really, which one we enjoy. So, for example, for general hobby, baking, writing, yoga, fishing, there are plenty of these things. We can. But if you're doing it, we know what we are doing it for. Not that's become another to do thing again. Because I know some people have a cabin, go from 40, 50 hours of work, and go 50, 40 hours of work. That's not what I'm talking about. Go from one thing to another, or go into too much drinking. The hobbies like collection, record collecting, stamp collecting, sport, sea glass collecting. I collect special rocks. Like if somebody comes to my office, but I have rock from, for example, my trip to Kilimanjaro and my trip to Antarctica. So I have pieces from every part of the land. But when touched them, remember. But I'm not really rock collector, but there's certain things, when I look at them, they feel me good, I have got a sort of like plant in my office. Again, I'm not saying this is what everybody has different, but you need to have yours. Competitively things, none of that does it for me. But again, depend who. Yeah, it doesn't. Bowling, bridge, just golfing doesn't do it for me. But some people love golfing because I have buddies who do it every day, and it's fine. Okay. Very cool. Okay. No. Okay. No. I want to jump from this. We'll come back to this a little later. Just a minute. No. I want to come back to trauma later. Okay. Okay. Some of this, for example, when I say trauma, it doesn't matter, it's stress, whatever you call it. Okay, what type of thing you do? Have you ever seen a flight attendant do this a lot? Have you ever seen it? As a matter of fact, there's bunch of activities, physical activity that neurologists will tell you the same thing. I don't have to document to tell you that. But this by itself, when this one right here, but this one the most important one. When you hit it, after about 2-3 minutes, state of relaxation comes in. If again, I'm not a neurologist, I don't know exactly how it happened, but if a lot of my patients that it does work, especially if you're in a stressful traumatic situation, it does work. It's stressful, it's a fear situation, it does work. It seems like there is a certain part of nerve would give the cue to the brain to produce dopamine. But for me, these two work. Some people do it here, some people do it here, some people do it here, but that's hard to build up.
Hopefully, all right.
Yeah. But sometimes when you are, I don't know, it happened to you when you are in a stressful situation, what you do normally to keep yourself grounded. Some of the things that I heard from other people do, soothing face and neck, or something, put your feet firmly on the ground, listen to a soothing song, rub your paw and whatever. What for me, whatever work, this one work. Okay, this does work sometimes. Okay, so but again, everybody has their own way. Holding something. Carry something meaningful. When I went to Kilimanjaro, but 10 years ago, I was scared of it. And there was a friend of mine, mother, realized that, and give me, I can't find it now, give me this, I don't have it put it in the right place. I misplaced it. There is a small, what you call it, the people Christian carry?
Religious medal?
Yeah.
St. Christopher.
She gave it to me and said, this will save you. And I wasn't scared. And she's 95 years old. I listened to her. It's psychologically positive. I hold on to that. This has been in my pocket for 9 years. My point is, I'm saying, it doesn't matter what was it, as long as things that you can hold on to and to you it sounds positive, okay? So when you are walking, can your mind search for something positive, or what's wrong? What is wrong? Because most of us, what's wrong here? Where says look? Is there any flowers, any pet, any children, any something good? For example, when I first jumped into this building, I felt at peace because I saw anthropology, I saw archaeology, and I saw theology. I said, I'm home. I come from a very old country, and I said, but I permit myself to do that. So my point is that sometimes when you're stressed, you can do some of the cognitive strategy. It was talking about, say you check where you are, what you are, what day is it, what time is it, it grounds you. You can teach other people the same thing. You say, what day is today? Even the person upset, if you chase them, say, can you tell me what day today is? The attention will go to something else, right? Tell me about about a positive experience. So again, coming back to the healthy side, what can you do besides this hobby, whatever is for? Again, you're familiar with, put your phone down, put your laptop down, take time off. And I said to you before, and walk, swim. And I said, people say, well, it's raining outside. I did swim to fully do it. But I said, well, how many steps on your home? 15 steps. Why do you have to take 100 steps off? I don't have a treadmill, but you have the steps. You have, if it's in the wind, there's a way. I said here, it said, learn to landscape your mind with flowers. But we learn because of the culture, because of the media, we learn to landscape all of this garbage. There are more doom and gloom, and even what we hear, people don't come to us, the few guys with all of the flower, they come with something else. So how you can landscape your brain, you need to teach yourself 2-3 times a day. It's simple exercise. 2-3 times a day, go back 2-3 hours, see what positive thing you experience. Okay? What positive thing you experience. And try to re-experience it again. So what's the message if you do it on a daily basis? The message is collect them, not collect that. But we don't do that. If there's an accident someplace and a nice couple holding hand, we see the accident, we don't see nice couple holding hand. Because that's what we're taught that way. What I am saying is you need to understand, it's real, but teach our brain on 24-hour basis, seek for the flowers. I'm not confusing you. Okay. Let me go back to. I want to. These are what I learned from other people, not my words. Okay. As a minister, what type of thing you can do to manage your boundaries and you manage your balance it. For example, I don't know how many, probably you do it. You can do that. Tell your secretary allow to screen the call. Okay? Physician does it all the time. Okay? I've always said it, my secretary write it down, so I don't take any phone call. So I have a chance to, but I call back if necessary. These are simple exercises, I read this one in pastoralcare.com. The 12 safeguard for the caregiver. Know your limitation. Provide professional help for others. Do not try to be everything to everyone. That's one of the things we do. And I was talking to someone the other day that one of the psychologists, my colleague, apparently went on and paid for the medication of the patient because it was too late to access for the person was suicidal. He has gone a little far, but she had to do what she had to do. Right? For example, you're doing it to providing other professionals to help other, so engaging other people to give us a hand. Again, the inverse are talking about do not bottle up. Be realistic. What does that mean, realistic? When somebody come to you, what you can do, what you can't do, actually, and you really check with your own emotion, I want to do this, but I can't do this, you balance it between that. Now I come back to time management in a minute. The other thing is limit what you share with your family member. It means professionally what you're taking home. If you have that habit of, because 3 words is for sleep, home, and work, it has to be separated. If you bring the work home mentally, not physically, then you're in trouble. Or vice versa, bring it home to work, you're in trouble. Or you bring it, both of them to the sleep, you're in trouble. Brain learn to need to do when I always said when I leave my office, Dr. Khalili stay in the office, Hassan goes home. So when I see you someplace, you can't come, but I don't feel I didn't go to a school to become a slave of my job. You didn't go become a clergy to become a slave of your job. Is this another part of that was to say, sometimes debriefing, not in terms of debriefing with the trauma, but debriefing in general is sometimes you need to find a colleague or somebody to get out of the system. You have people that you can talk to. And because I always believe that between the religiosity and spirituality are two different things. You can be religious, but not spiritual. So be spiritual, not religious, or can be both. I think that what I'm saying, make sure your spirit is alive. And every time when I'm angry with someone, I say, well, I'm angry with you, but I don't want to kill your spirit, because that's the spirit is killed. The person is really finished.
We encourage our students, for instance, to have spiritual advisors, and to keep that when you leave here and you go back out, because you need to have somebody who can bounce stuff off of, them, somebody who and not your husband or your wife.
Yeah,
that's not the right choice.
That's very true.
You know, so it's an individual that you go to, even close friends, but somebody can tell you that you're full of it. If you're without hurting you, and
exactly,
going on.
Exactly.
And that's the value of spiritual advisors, and to bring it from. It's very important.
But we all need it. I have the privilege of having associates, so I go to my associate. In between hours, between days, go for lunch. I'm feeling confident. I feel I don't know what to do with this. This is another point I saw. Again, similar repetition what we talk about. Give yourself time to heal. For example, if you're upset, how long take you to calm down? You. I don't need too much time. Some people need more time. Okay, and ask yourself, if I'm really angry, how long it take me to calm down to move out of it? What type of thing I can do to get it out? And again, ask for support from we already talking about that. Communicate your experience in any way that comfortable you. Journaling, talking, we already talked about it. Whatever the doer should do it. The writer should write, talker should talk, or combination. Again, we talked about all of the three before in different format, and especially number 6. I always said, don't make it right decision when you're really emotionally bottled up, because if I put my emotion here, my intelligence here, right? People who are healthy, they are together. When the emotion goes up, the intelligence goes down. If it stays long enough, your IQ is minus 50. Okay. And that's the reason we say things, because we don't think to make a decision. I'm sick of this, I'm going to sell it, I'm going to get rid of it. And sometimes you are preyed on it by others, by salespeople. Okay. We're going to come back to this for later. I wanted somebody to read this one for me. This one. This is another subject that I want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying. Before I was talking about inverse. Now, how to not to get to inverse process. This is what I'm trying to say to you. How to even, before that, you can keep yourself from it. Okay.
Learning not to bite. I've been going to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning for many, many years. That's how I manage to stay in shape for all the hiking I do, as well as for simple day-to-day life. There's a man at my gym who also works out at the same early hour. He's been doing so for about 20 years. Now, I'm a pretty agreeable guy. I nod and smile at people. I make small talk with strangers in the grocery line. I think pleasantries are the lubricant that keeps the wheels of social interaction moving smoothly. So for the first few years, I would say good morning or hello when I ran into this early morning fellow fitness freak. He acknowledged my greeting, but not once did he ever initialize an interaction. Given the opportunity, he completely ignored not only my existence, but that of any other people who were around. He didn't have a clinical or psychological problem. He just didn't read social cues. You know what? This behavior of his drove me nuts. It's not just that I didn't like it. That's fine because I don't have to like the way other people behave. But I didn't like the way it stayed with me. It was like he was holding out a hook and I wanted to bite it hard. As American statesman Thomas Jefferson once said, "Do not bite at the bait of pleasure till you know there is no hook beneath it." And biting in anger is the same thing. Almost all of us communicate with each other verbally, but we also use body language as well. I understand what you're saying by taking my cues from your words and from your actions, and you do the same thing. But a lot of the time we convey the wrong message. We don't mean to. It's just that we've not learned how to communicate emotionally. That's why the guy at the gym got to me. His emotional communication frustrated me, and he probably didn't even realize it. But sometimes people do realize it, and they do it anyway. They're trying to get people to bite. I see that a lot in my practice when married couples come in for counseling. When people come to see me, there are often two different factors at work that need to be dealt with. The first one is the actual problem or problems they are having. Perhaps their values conflict or they have different mindsets. The other factor is the emotional communication between the couple. In order to figure out what needs to be done with the underlying problem, I need to recognize some of the ways they communicate emotionally. I study their body language, whether they don't look at the other person or conversely stare at the other person, whether they keep their distance or stay within close proximity, whether their arms and hands are relaxed or look ready to strike, and what kind of expression they have on their face, smiling, smirking, angry, etc. I had a couple come to see me recently who had become experts at the most damaging of paraverbal communications. They'd been baiting each other for 3 years. By that, I mean they were deliberately acting in a way so as to elicit either an angry or an emotional response from the person with whom they were interacting. There are many ways to do this, including by making an accusation seemingly out of nowhere, by demanding something, by playing on the other person's emotions, by deliberately making the other person jealous, and by acting as if they're always the victim. It was difficult to tell which one was the fisherman and which one was the fish. In fact, they each played both roles and were able to bait each other by attacking the most sensitive areas and biting down. That just escalates the fight. That's why they needed me to help put a stop to it. Often this kind of problem arises in people who are very intelligent. The wife in this instance was very smart and ended up thinking she knew everything. She was 5 kilometers ahead of everyone else, waiting for them to catch up. And as a result, she stopped listening, not just to her husband, but to me as well. I finally had to ask her what she thought I was there for, if she was always so many steps ahead of me. She needed to slow down, stop rolling her eyes impatiently, and listening to what I had to say, because even though she thought she knew where the conversation was going, she didn't really. She needed to stop baiting both of us. It was a hard-learned lesson to stop baiting, but the couple realized it was the only road they could take that would lead to healing their marriage. But as crucial as not baiting is not biting. 5 years ago, I met a hockey coach who had a couple of kids on his team who misbehaved. He was pretty firm in correcting their behavior, and it just so happened that one of the children was an only child with an overprotective mother. She rushed to her baby's defense and emotionally beat up on that coach so badly that he ended up quitting coaching, and it still bothered him years later. He had done nothing wrong, but the mother baited him, as she had probably done to many other authority figures in her child's life, and he bit. He needed to remember that he's not a fish. Like so many other things, we must choose not to bite. We must choose not to rise to the bait. One way to do that is to recognize when the other person is baiting us. It's like advertising. It's no coincidence that snack food commercials start turning up on TV around 8 o'clock in the evening. If we don't recognize what they're doing, we take the bait and trot into the kitchen for something to eat. But once we recognize that they're trying to manipulate us, it's so much easier to stop that automatic response. So even though I didn't like the way the guy in the gym acted, I eventually learned to shrug it off. He behaves the way he behaves. That's just the way he is. I don't have to bite. I choose not to bite. And really, that's a small, unimportant thing on the same level as being treated like an idiot, or feeling like you're being treated like an idiot because you have to ask a clerk where to locate an item you're trying to find in a large store. I've even learned not to get annoyed when people ask me where I'm really from. I admit it doesn't always work. I still occasionally bite if someone questions my integrity or my professional competence. This is something that's important to me, and it's hard not to take the bite. But I am a human being, not a sockeye salmon. And mostly, instead of biting, I will myself to walk right past that hook, no matter how tempting the bait.
Question of biting. Ask yourself, what area you bite? Physical question about you, how tall are you, how much your weight, or where you from, or whatever it is. It is very intelligent. The same way we put mask in our mouths to not be have a infection. We put our gloves when we're cooking with dirt. We need to learn not to bite. If really, we never think it that way until we realize it, where is my weak points and what time of day is my weak points and what time of month is my weak points. What area is that my weak point? And if we are able not to bite, there's people who try to make you have difficulty with it. Again, sometimes we set ourselves, but I worry for her. I really like her. You're still trying to bite. Caring and over caring is a big difference. I have difficulty with that myself, but don't be wrong. But it's a constant battle with not to bite. And ask yourself that question. This is the two things I mentioned to you today. What I said is the most important part that I have found over the course of the years, especially being a psychotherapist, that to be so to not to bite too much.
What happens if you have somebody though that is the person, as soon as you see them, you bite?
Defense goes up.
Yeah, but like you can almost feel.
Yeah, and that's one point. But you learn to desensitize yourself. You learn to, and that's the question. Very good question they ask. How to do it. You need to learn to first imaginary exercises, like sensitization exercises you can do that So what you do, you imagine that you're seeing this person, and then you get hooked, and you arrive, and you calm yourself down, and you keep on doing it till you don't. 60-70% of it, what this exercise would do. For example, I don't know what you guys, when you go to a migration crossing, some of them are bathing you. I mean, because of the, and so you have to be prepared. Because you say, how many you tell them exactly. When you tell them exactly. They hook you. It doesn't matter if you go to a restaurant, go into whatever. The whole idea to not to bite, especially professionally, is really safeguarding you from infection. And psychological infection, right? You know what I'm saying? Are you following me? Okay. Now, there is another thing I want you to, which is we talk about, like you just read. Sorry. This is about time, because one of the things we talk about the time management, but I'm seeing it a different way. Okay? That's okay. Go ahead.
It's called Making Friends with Time. There's an old saying that time is money, meaning that time should be used to make money and not wasted if there's no income to be derived from it. Although this isn't exactly true, time and money do have a lot in common, or at least we talk about them in the same way. They can both be saved, and they can both be spent. They can both be budgeted. Certainly they can both be wasted, and the lack of them can have a severe impact on our quality of life. How often do we see time as our enemy? When we're in our working years, we don't seem to have enough of it. We work too much, we have too many personal and family obligations. We have all kinds of things demanding our time. So time becomes our enemy because we have too much to do and not enough time to do it in. Later on, when we're not working and we're retired, or when we simply don't have a plan of activities, we have too much time and nothing to do with it. So time becomes our enemy again. But is time really our enemy, or is it our friend? Most of us never answer that question. I think we need to accept time as our friend, because we only have so much of it, and we have less every day until it's finally all gone. I remind myself of this by going to the cemetery. It may sound morbid, but it isn't. I stand facing a gravestone, and every time I go, I stand a little closer, to show that I have less time remaining to me than I did the last time I visited. It reminds me to use my time wisely and to enjoy spending it. Most of us only have so much money too, but we don't see money as an enemy. When you have $100 to spend, you feel good. Your imagination starts to work. I can buy those shoes I saw at the mall, or I can go out for dinner at that new restaurant. We must learn to see time the same way and treat it as a gift. Of course, just as you have to spend money on necessities as well as on indulgences, you also have to spend time doing a lot of things that are obligation rather than pleasures. But just like money, you should never give too much of it away, and you should spend it wisely. So many people talk about how they work Monday to Friday just to make it to the weekend to enjoy themselves. This makes me sad. We shouldn't spend all that time without enjoying it. Yes, we have to work, but we need to enjoy that time as well as the time we are not working. Look how we spend our money. We need to spend money on shelter. We have no choice. And we might not like the place we live. It might be too small. It might be in the wrong neighborhood. The people next door might be unpleasant. But we still fix it up and make it as nice as we can. We can do the same with the time we have to spend somewhere we'd rather not be. For example, we can give ourselves little gifts of time in the form of good memories. Stop to remember something nice when things are looking glum, just as you would stop to have a drink of water if you were thirsty. It's a bit of a relief from a bad situation, just as a drink is a bit of relief from thirst. Our brain can be trained to dwell on good things just as it can be trained to dwell on bad things. We must teach it. Decorate our mind the way we decorate our living space. Don't just trudge to the car or to the bus, head down and shoulders hunched. Look at the flowers. Watch the people around you. You have to take that walk regardless. Teach yourself to enjoy the time you spend doing it. Do not leave time unused. If you go for a cup of coffee and it costs $3 and you hand over $5, you want your change. You may choose to give that change as a tip to the person who served you, but you may choose to put it in a charity jar on the counter. You may choose to put it back in your wallet, but you don't just leave it there lying. You decide how it will be spent. Yet we all leave too much time lying there unspent because we haven't chosen to do something with it. A few days ago, I found myself locked out of my car. How frustrating. There was nothing to do but call my daughter and ask if she could bring me a spare key. She agreed, but I had to wait about 20 minutes for her to arrive. I could have railed against the circumstances that left me hanging around and complained to myself about how much time I was wasting when there was so much else I could be doing. But I didn't. Instead, I used that time to walk around a new neighborhood and enjoy being outdoors. I did not leave my time lying on the counter unspent. I did not waste it. I treated it as a gift. Things happen, make the best of it. I've seen people pick at themselves physically or pick at others by criticism and gossiping just to fill time. Some people go so far as to make up stories and interfere with other people's business for the same reason. They are really spending their time badly and turning it into an enemy. On the other hand, I have a 90-year-old patient who comes in to see me once or twice a year. She's very clear on why she is there. She has 5 or 6 things she wants me to plan out with her for the next 6 months, like what to do with her husband, with her bridge club, and so on. I say she comes in for a tune-up and oil change to make sure she keeps running smoothly. It's always a pleasure to see her. In fact, it's these kind of things that make me love my profession so much. I'm not perfect, and because I love it, I make the mistake of giving too much time to it. Kind of like deciding to go out for 2 beers and always staying for 4. We need to make peace with time. That means understanding how much time we have and deciding how we are going to spend that time. Then we are going to have fun with time, not in spite of it.
Any question? Any of you have difficulty managing it? So little we have, right? And the people who kill themselves, suicide, they have bought so much emotional fat, they have bitten so much, and they can see, I want to get away, so they know what to. And sometimes when we see them, that they are doing, if we are close enough to understand it, how these values can be shifted, and they find another way of another way of dealing with time. And how many people go and help other people? How many people? What points I'm trying to make? You know most of these steps. To me, if you balance your mentality, your physical, your home life, your work life, and you have enough goodies to, hobbies to do that. Normally, we can carry on. It's things that happen, but there's a couple of more subjects I want to talk to you before I could close off. They asked me about social media, because right now this is one of those things, the laptop, saying. A lot of people is they found that they are spending too much time on telephone, on messaging, or you know what I'm saying. And if you go to the Mamesh, you have seen it. 5, 6 people from the same family, same neighborhood, No. The question is, these create, what I read and I hear, create anxiety. No, I'm jumping ahead of myself. How we can reduce it by stepping away from it, like certain places you decide not to take your telephone you're saying. Find other way to connect it. Go and stop with your friend and talk to them. Everybody. Be selective with one or two medias that when you especially post something that you want. I don't post, and but I have one or two, for example, I do. But I found that all my bathroom time is taken. A lot of people, even you have it, you have half of your ears related to your telephone all the time. Eventually, we need to learn how to manage this media. Again, this right now, this become a problem. It's not yet to the roof that they that everybody will be worried about. Now, one of the things we said, if are you familiar with what help is available for you and others in town? I mean, I put it up because I thought maybe I didn't know there was certain things that existed. I know some of these things existed, but I didn't know that for example, breathing room, mindful. I mean, I didn't know that some of this existed. And it's counseling, for example. There's no appointment needed for to go to this doorway counseling. So sometimes, and the central intake, whatever. Again, I'm talking about publicly available to us, right? But you can get them from from computer, all of these. Now I'm going to stop. See, have any questions for me? Anything that you want to ask? What I said so far.
Any particular questions or comments from anyone online or anyone in attendance here?
None here.
Okay.
The time thing really stands out because I mean, how often, especially the three of us, sat around in the past few weeks and said, "Oh my goodness, like there's so much to do in so little time. We get so wrapped up in it."
Yeah. Between yes and no, when you say no, when you say yes. That's a big one,
Yeah.
Some people say no very quickly. Some people say no very late. And same with yes, then yeah. And no and yes have to be balanced between. I call it closed door policy, open door policy. By that means that when you have closed door policy, that you concentrate on one thing or two things, mentally, physically, don't do it. And open door policy, let everything, all the telephone, everybody can, the door actually open. Everything come to your mind. It has to be a balance between closed door policy. Closed door policy all the time is not good. Open door policy is not good all the time. Whatever format that you use. I wish I had more time to tell you about some of the techniques.
I think one of the things that's helpful is, I suppose the sentiment we might say, or the guidance of the serenity prayer, to know the difference between the things you can change and things you can't. And we can take that at different layers. Very, existentially, we might say there are things that we cannot change, and so we have to surrender to the realities of illness and death and what have you. But then in everyday context as well, for instance, being in my or any of us, as far as that goes, we might say our station in life, our jobs or our positions, whether it's as students or instructors or professionals or workers, parents and families, like there you have to look realistically at, well, what can I change? Sometimes what can we change and do with others help, but what can't I change? And that really brings around into priorities. Well, what are our priorities and why we have them? So it's a bit of soul searching, I find, for myself, you know.
Adding what you said, also, again, I'm talking about practical part of it. Adding to it, I think we are thinking 4 ways. And you said what realistically, you said realistic. We think pessimistically, optimistically, idealistically, and realistically. Where the idealism and realism are come together. Because no matter how realistic you want to be, you're still idealistic. Where the balance would be, I'm not saying it shouldn't be idealistic, but it's supposed to be this way. I mean, you're a policeman all the time, no matter you have uniform or no. You're a physician all the time. That's idealism, right? I understand it, but where is Hassan? Where is me in the middle of it? Yeah, and that's a body doesn't understand between this profession, this, but body would squeeze in. So between the realism and idealism has to be something, and that's where emotional communication. You know how much you can hate, and that's where when your body tells you no, that's the beginning. When a lot of people don't listen to the cue of the body or the mind or what they're saying. So it's, for example, time, you can give so much of it to work and to this, but you know where is their limit. I mean, a lot of people come to see me when I ask them, I said, 45 hours a week. Yes, 45 hours a week. But, but, you should be taken out. But the moment you bought it, the door is open. So, and that's what I'm saying. Where the balancing act coming in, and I know we all make mistakes. We're all sometimes. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I'll go back to your own communication between your body and mind, and where is your between your professionally idealistic what you should do as a father, as a mother, as a brother, as a sister, what we should do, and what we can do. And then it has to be balanced between them.
But I think that's one of the biggest challenges to face.
Yeah.
I mean, for myself right now, I'm a rector of perhaps the largest parish within the diocese right now, okay? And as a deacon and priest, I've been ordained 18 years, so there's been a variety of ministries and experiences that I have been entrusted to. What I find right now is the parish I'm in right now, I do have the privilege of an associate priest, which many parishes do not have right now. So I'm very thankful to have that. My role is more that of an administrator. I do a lot of administration. I'm a pastor at heart. I always will be. I always have been. I always will be. I've never forgotten that. But there are days I have to struggle with that amidst the administration that has to be carried out as well. Now, we do have an administrator as well, but there are certain things I reckon the parish you just have to do. The part that I find, I think is a challenge that you said so well today, is when Wayne leaves the parish at 8 o'clock tonight or 9 o'clock or whenever that is, depending if, that Wayne goes home and that the Reverend Wayne Parsons stays at All Saints Parish, Right. And I think that's a challenge for all, and it's trying to separate that.
From what I read from you said, and this is important psychological thing. Give yourself a message of this, right?
Right.
That's strong. The message has to be, I have to do whatever I have to do, and but also I put my health first. No matter what, your health is first. Work is second or third. Okay. So what you answer to you and say, well, I do understand, but you need to at one point say, when come first. okay? But do you really believe that and then exercise it?
Right.
Versus you say, yeah, I know, but then the but become a big one.
And I think the thing is, and because I agree 100% with what you're saying, I think within clergy culture, that's always been ingrained over the years.
Same thing with the physician.
Same thing as physician, the same thing, it's always been on call, it's been available, it's 2 in the day, 2 in the morning, but I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying.
How do we have overtime?
We're going to, no, it's no problem. That's so interesting, and thank you for today's presentation, for the series and the way you've connected the themes, but really connected with the issues that we know are so relevant to those who are attending the sessions, those who view them online, and others that may be referred to them. So thanks for all you do. Thanks for your attendance with us and the support you give to so many who need it, those in ministry and many others. You have your own ministry. Thanks, Dr. Khalili. Thank you all, and thanks for those who have attended online.
Thank you for reading this.
Oh, no
Thank
problem.
you guys for reading.
You're welcome.